If you've watched enough of my videos, you probably know that I see a lot of films each year, even some of the lowest, bottom of the barrel excrement that comes out of Hollywood. But if there's one thing I can say, it's that I never get tired of sitting down and talking to you guys about the movies that I love and hate, even if watching the film itself feels like a chore. So let's talk about Tarot. It's been a while since we've had one of these shitty PG-13 low-budget horror films. If you hadn't told me otherwise, I probably would have thought that this was produced by Blumhouse. It's actually coming from Sony, but this proves that every studio is capable of making this crap. In Tarot, 7 college students rent a mansion in the backwoods to celebrate a birthday party. They break into a locked room, which they probably shouldn't do, discover a deck of tarot cards among other creepy old collectibles. And I guess there's this saying that you shouldn't read horoscopes using someone else's deck, but they do anyways. Almost immediately after doing this, their fates, which are written on the cards, become reality as they are picked off one by one. And that's how the movie begins. When it opens, it's like we're already in Act 2 and the writers just skipped over the first act. There's no introduction to the characters or this friendship dynamic between all 7 of these characters. We're just suddenly thrust into this situation. And the general premise here is very familiar. Just look at anything that's curse related, like The Ring. This is basically The Ring meets Final Destination. I found elements in here that seem similar to both of those films. But familiar doesn't even scratch the surface. This is one of the tropiest horror films that ever troped. I was able to predict so much of what went down in this. Everything about it feels so par for the course. The introduction of the curse, the horrible, overly telegraphed jump scares that I could anticipate on cue, the characters using the internet to search for someone who has experience with their curse, and then of course that person comes into the story and winds up vomiting an unholy exposition monologue. On a quick side note, I find it really convenient that every friend in this group has a different astrology sign so that their characteristics and ultimately their fates can be slightly different. I keep calling them characters, but they honestly don't even feel like characters. They're just nameless mouthpieces to spell out their situation for the audiences, set up obvious plot points for later on, and ultimately die in ways that are beyond predictable. And the dialogue is almost universally bad. Like every scene, the dialogue is atrocious. For instance, the very first kill scene, and it was so obvious to me which character was going to die first, and you can predict the entire order of who dies when and who's going to survive pretty easily, but the first girl that bites it, she goes back to her apartment, starts hearing some noises, walks out to investigate, and she says the typical, "Hello? Hello? Is anybody there? I swear if you guys are messing with me." Who is writing this dialogue? In another death scene, during most of the death scenes in this film, the characters first hear a distorted version of the reading of their horoscope from earlier on in the film. So it almost like it spells out in their head what moves they need to make in order to die quicker. In this scene, the characters are in a car, there's an obvious malevolent force outside, and this Pisces girl was told that she tends to run from her problems because of her sign, and it will be the death of her, some shit like that. Despite hearing that, and every other character staying in the car, in a group where they're the safest, she gets out and runs. Spoiler alert, she dies, and I'm just sitting there thinking, what did you expect? As a fellow Pisces, we don't accept her. But this is the kind of contrived, idiotic screenwriting that I absolutely loathe. There's always some stupid reason they decide to split up, even after expressing the desire to stick together like one scene earlier. This movie does have one big saving grace, and that's the monster designs. I found them to be pretty disturbing. Some of them have abilities that on paper are really cool. Again, the film ruins them with these awful, drawn-out sequences of supposed suspense, but again, it's not really suspense because you can predict the jump scare down to the second. The monsters in this are based on artwork by a very talented guy by the name of Trevor Henderson. Congrats, dude. You succeeded where everybody else seemed to fail. I would go as far as to say that I love his work and would love to see it presented in a much better film. This is just literally every cliche horror film you can possibly imagine. This is this year's Wish Upon or Slender Man, or I don't even want to name off anymore. This doesn't deserve the time of that. Honestly, I was going to be a little bit lenient and give this 1.5 stars just for the creature designs alone, but then the ending happened, in which the movie suddenly morphed into a comedy. A bad comedy, mind you, but a comedy nonetheless. And I'm baffled by the fact that these characters just suffered a ton of loss, all of their friends just died, and they're cracking jokes. And before the screen fades to black, they leave us with the great closing line of, "Fuck fate." So you know what? Tarot gets 1 star. Usually these movies don't really upset me because we get so many of them each year and you just kind of expect it. I mean, they make their budget back easily, they're cheap. Generally speaking, a lot of teenagers will flood to the theaters to see this type of junk. But when one element is executed so well and everything else is so half-assed, it frustrates me because of all that wasted potential. So yeah, Taro kinda pissed me off. With that said, those are just my 2 cents on the film. If you do have the displeasure of going out and seeing this, please let me know down in the comments what you thought of it. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.